Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And as mini camp is underway for this big blue team, there's a couple of main takeaways. And Anthony, I got a joke for you right off the bat. What wears red and is really quick?
Kadarius Toney.
Yes, nailed it. And Kenny Galladay's a little bit different. He's slow and wears red, but they're both wearing red jerseys. What does that mean? They're kind of on the side doing individual drills. They're, I guess, categorized as injured. And that's not something that we are surprised by because these two guys dealt with a lot of injuries last season. But I do want to give some insight into why they are wearing red, what we should expect from them, why we shouldn't be too concerned. There's a couple more takeaways, talking about some guys like Dexter Lawrence. I want to mention Saquon Barkley a little bit, and some other mini camp stuff that, is worth breaking down and delivering to you fine folk. Before we dive into the mini camp takeaways, my friend Anthony, how are you doing today?
I was doing a lot better until you gave me that really shitty joke, but I'm going to push past that and move on, try and focus on the New York Giants and them starting minicamp because it was an interesting first day of practice. I mean, the defense really dominated the offense. Wink Martindale went out there, sent out a lot of creative blitzes. If you read up on it, read what the beat writers are saying. They're saying that there was a different package on the field pretty much every single play. He was just throwing out all this creative stuff, and Daniel Jones and the offense kind of never saw it coming. And when they did make plays, there was somebody who stood out, and you mentioned him. We're going to get into him in a little bit. So I think that's going to be interesting to discuss. But overall, the defense looks like the much better unit than the offense after day one of minicamp, which I think is really interesting because I think when you look at this team on paper and you look at how we lost all of these players and there's still a lot of players on defense who do have red jerseys and aren't even playing, that's kind of surprising to see that the defense is so significantly outperforming the offense after day one of minicamp. But you know what it really is, they're implementing new schemes. There's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be taking time and adjusting, an adjustment period for the offense. They got to install the scheme, and it's going to be a little difficult for them at the start. If this continues deep into training camp, then we have a serious problem. And we know that we're going to have another bad offense going into the 2022 season. But right now, it's better for the offense to learn the scheme, get together with the system, and get their struggles out of the way early and now.
Yeah, and I'll throw in a couple of variables that do have an impact, right? Well, immediately Brian Daboll did say that the offense is fully implemented. They know the system. They know the playbook. Then now it's just a matter of getting the reps in, the timing with the quarterbacks and the receivers and whatnot. And I will say this, right? The defense did kick some serious ass yesterday, but they didn't have Kadarius Toney, they didn't have Kenny Golladay, and they didn't have Andrew Thomas. So, that's their three best players, by most accounts. So not having your three best players definitely will have an impact. But for the rest of the guys, it's good for Josh Ezeudu to get some reps. It's good for Evan Neal to get some reps. Of course, Daniel Jones, Dane Belton on the defensive side had 2 sacks or would have been 2 sacks on back-to-back plays in 11v11 drills. So Dane Belton, a guy we talked about a couple of days ago from Iowa, that's that kind of strong safety, that slot safety kind of guy, that cash position that he played. Looking good so far. He's a guy, he's a thumper, he's a hard hitter. He's going to play in the box slot for this Giants team. He's going to blitz from the box, and he's going to do a lot of good things, and he's really good in zone coverage in that shorter intermediate portions of the field. So I'm excited to see how he continues developing and making an impact on this Wink Martindale defense. But they sent the house, man. They were sending the house on every single play, aggressive. And personally, I think this is exactly what Daniel Jones needs to see. This is what he's been seeing in live action during games for the past couple of seasons, given the offensive line has been so bad and so many injuries to the playmakers. But I think that Daniel Jones seeing this type of aggression and learning how to deal with it appropriately from good coaches like Brian Daboll and whatnot, Mike Kafka, 2 guys who helped Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. There's 2 of the best off-script quarterbacks in football. Daniel Jones needs to learn how to operate off script. And Golden Tate actually said something really interesting today. He said the last couple of years, the Giants have been trying to make the decisions for Daniel Jones instead of letting him just turn it loose. I fully agree with that. We've been saying that for years. And Pat Shurmur had that similar mindset when he was, coaching up Daniel Jones, getting him, accustomed to the NFL, being aggressive, letting him throw the ball, letting him take risks. Jason Garrett came in and totally locked down the offensive system. He forced him to be robotic, a lot of shrinking the field, not letting him take opportunities on his own. And I think that really held him back. We saw Mike Glennon take more opportunities and take more risks than Daniel Jones, and I think that was simply unacceptable. So now that we're going into mini camp, we have a couple days, and then there's a break until training camp, and then we got the spring training, or rather, we got a preseason. So there's a lot of stuff left to untap for this Giants team. We want to see Toney and Golladay get back, and Brian Daboll did say that he's being a little bit vague on the injuries, not going to speak about them very much, but he anticipates that Toney and Golladay will be available for training camp. He said he learned a lot from his time in Buffalo about how to deal with injuries. And I think that the Giants try to rush back a lot of their guys way too often and then put them through physically grueling scenarios like the laps or just the physical consequences that Joe Judge laid out that really rubbed some guys the wrong way. And I think Toney and Golladay, take it easy with them. Make sure they're 100% ready for training camp. There's no reason for those guys to be involved in mini camp. It's really for the rookies. It's really for the new players. They were both here last year. They understand where the building, everything around the building. They understand what's going on. They're learning the playbook. They're doing individual drills. Wait until training camp until they're 100% healthy. Don't rush it. And, if you didn't know this, Kadarius Toney did have minor ankle surgery a couple of weeks ago. So that was just to clean it up, make sure that there was no, prolonged issues that could arise. And I think that was for the best. I think Dable is doing a good job at mitigating any more injury concerns and doing what's necessary for guys that have been prone in the past, like Golladay and Toney. Keep them in red jerseys. And there's a couple of more guys I do want to throw into the mix here that were also in red jerseys on Wednesday specifically. So Kayvon Thibodeau still in a red jersey, Toney, Sterling Shepard, Colin Johnson, Andrew Thomas, Blake Martinez, Darnay Holmes, TJ Brunson, Darren Evans, Rodarius Williams, Aaron Robinson, Golladay, Travis Toivonen, and Quincy Roche and Matt Pert and Nick Gates. So the main guys being, Kenny, Thibodeau, Toney, Shep, and then Blake Martinez. Obviously, Aaron Robinson being in a red jersey is a little bit concerning. But, next man up. That's how we got to operate right now. And there's a couple of good players on this team, Anthony. What are you thinking so far about kind of how they're processing these injuries?
I think they're taking the right approach. You just take it day by day and you be patient. I mean, the last thing we want to see is Kayvon Thibodeau especially gets back on the field too soon, re-aggravates his hamstring injury, lower body injury, and makes it 10 times worse. And then you're talking about him not being available during training camp and preseason. And then he's starting to learn the system and get ramped up back to speed during the regular season. Well, then you can pretty much say his Defensive Rookie of the Year campaign is killed on the spot. Dead upon arrival. And that's not what we want. We want to see him get back to practice when he's fully healthy, do the small stuff on the side that he's able to do, everything that he's capable of doing, have him do it, but don't rush him back, risk a significant injury that keeps him out for an extended period of time where he can't do any work and can't even be on the sideline, right? We want him involved to whatever capacity he can be in without the risk of re-injury. And it goes the same for Kenny Golladay, for Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, I think, could be the X factor in the Giants offense this upcoming season. He does so much after the catch. He does so much as a route runner in the intermediate area, and he's got speed to push defenses vertical and open things underneath for other receiving options like Saquon Barkley, who I want to discuss in a second here. But Kadarius Toney is super injury prone. But I feel like last season, he would get an injury, the Giants would rush him back, and then he would get another injury. And I think that's what was happening a lot with Kadarius Toney last season, is he wasn't taking the proper time to actually heal before getting back on the field. So I think it's a good thing that he got his little minor ankle surgery, which is actually very similar to what Andrew Thomas just had. They both just had minor ankle surgery, but they're both key pieces of the Giants offense. And so while they're recovering these ankles, the last thing I want them to do is run back on the field too soon, tear that ankle up again, and then be out for the year. So keep them off the field, keep them just learning the playbook and doing drills on the side, and get them healthy for the start of training camp. I think that's the main goal for all of these injured players, and I think that's the approach that Brian Dable is taking. I wouldn't expect to see any of these players really participate in minicamp at all. I think you're going to see them in training camp next month, and I think you're going to see them return to full strength and be fully involved with the practices during training camp, and I think that's the exact strategy that Brian Dable should take.
Right. And, they did already say that Daniel Jones, his neck injury is gone. He's 100% healthy and ready to go. So that's a really great sign. There was some concerns that it could be something a little bit more serious that require like surgery or he would miss some time this upcoming year. But seems to be ready to go. No problems there. That's a really good sign. And hopefully DJ learns to not slide headfirst into people anymore. Maybe he'll take some lessons from a baseball coach or something about how to slide feet first. Because the guy, I don't know what it is, but he thinks he's diving into the deep end every time he goes down. He's like diving right into freaking 300-pound linebackers. And you're going to die. Like you're going to get hurt. And then hopefully he's learned his lesson already. But, just being smart, that's part of it. A little bit, another cool little tidbit. New Giants defensive end, Jihad Ward. Really cool little thing that he did here. So as you know, Kayvon Thibodeau has had the red jersey on. He's been pretty sidelined for the most part recently, but he's learning the playbook. And Ward said about Kayvon Thibodeau today, I'm on his ass. I'm on it to make sure he's learning the playbook because I don't want him to play slow. He'll be ready. So it's nice to see that there's some guys, some veterans, especially a guy like Ward, who's a veteran for the first year for the Giants. He's just coming over from the Ravens, where Wink Martindale was previously the defensive coordinator. So he's here now, and he feels like he's taking this leadership role on and helping Kayvon Thibodeau adjust to the NFL. You love to see it. This is not like an Antoine Bethea kind of role. This is more of like a reserve type of guy that's going to be behind the scenes working hard, making sure everyone's ready, and just being a good teammate. And I think that the Giants have brought in some really good personalities to help in that sense specifically, which is really great. Like that's part of like building a new culture, is building good leadership, and I think that's like part of success in general. Anthony, one player I do want to talk about is Saquon Barkley, like you mentioned before. It looks like he's a little thinner. Am I mistaken? He looks like he's a little bit thinner than he has been in years past, a little bit quicker. I saw a picture of him yesterday. He doesn't look as bulky as he used to be. He looks thinner, which may help him with his ability just in terms of getting between the tackles and becoming more of that like luxury scat back role instead of this like de facto like power gap runner where the Giants are trying to force him into. I don't know. I could just be seeing at a weird angle, but he looks a little bit smaller than to me, and maybe it will help his agility a bit if that is true.
I mean, I don't really know. Maybe you just saw it from a weird angle. Maybe he did drop like 5 pounds or so, and he did thin out a little bit, and he's going to be a little bit quicker. But my main takeaway from 2 days of mini camp for Saquon Barkley is his involvement in the receiving game, and I'm super excited about it. Every report that I'm reading about Saquon Barkley at mini camp is stating that he's getting involved in the receiving game out of the backfield. That's what I saw on Tuesday, day one of mini camp. When the offense was making plays, I think this was Jordan Rannon who said this. He said when the offense actually got a chance to make plays today, Tuesday, it was Saquon Barkley in the receiving game. That's where they were making their plays, coming out of the backfield and catching the ball. And now today, Wednesday, we're seeing Saquon Barkley is lining up all over the place at receiver, a significant amount of time playing receiver and getting involved in the receiving game. And Saquon Barkley even had a quote said, quote, "I haven't really moved around the offense like this since college," end quote. And I love that because you're going to see a different version of Saquon Barkley this year that could allow him to have a breakout campaign that returns him to his rookie season form, or maybe even surpasses the bar that he set in that 2018 Rookie of the Year season. Because Saquon Barkley, in his rookie year, had 91 receptions. It was a franchise record, most receptions in a season by a rookie. I've mentioned this stat before, but think about that. Most receptions in a season by a rookie, and he's a running back, and we had Odell Beckham Jr. have the historic rookie season as a wide receiver that he had. And he played receiver, and then he played running back, and he had more catch. I mean, it's kind of just the craziest stat to me. I think it really shows how versatile of a player Saquon Barkley can be, how valuable of a player he can be, and it really does shed light on how the last two coaching regimes significantly underutilized his talents. And Brian Dable already, day one of minicamp, is stepping in and saying, no, we are not going to just ignore the amazing abilities that you have in the receiving game. We're going to utilize this facet of your game. We're going to get you involved as a receiver out of the backfield and lining up at wide receiver. And we're going to make you the superstar running back that you were expected to be when you came out of the draft in 2018. And I'm really excited for it. I'm all here for it. I think this can be a huge year for Saquon Barkley. He does need to stay healthy. He's not in a red jersey, which is a great sign already. He is fully healthy right now, but he needs to remain healthy. Health has been the biggest factor holding Saquon Barkley back the last 2 seasons, but if he's able to remain healthy in the 2022 season, I absolutely believe that Brian Dable is going to unlock another level of his game through the receiving facet of the offense, and it's going to be really fun to watch.
Man, if they can do that, I'd be ecstatic. I mean, we've talked about the stats in the past. You mentioned some just there. He's had more yards in his rookie season than he has almost in the last 3 years combined. Like the guy has shown flashes of elite. He had a whole season of it. His second year wasn't that bad either, and he was playing on a bum ankle. But the last 2 years have been rather disappointing. He did say today, I feel a lot better than I felt at this point last year. My body feels good. I'm trusting my knee again. So that's a great sign mentally, right? Getting over a big injury like that is more about mentally trusting it after it's been healed than anything. So I think Saquon, if there's anyone that can unlock the best of Saquon, it's Brian Dable and Mike Kafka. I fully trust that those guys are gonna figure out ways to get him really involved. And if he ends up killing it and having a dominant 2022 season, there's going to be people that say we got to re-sign him, we got to extend him, and like that's going to be such an interesting situation that unfolds for this Giants front office if he ends up killing it, and they're like, we can't let this guy go, he's half our offense, he's capable of being that good. it's going to be really interesting. I'm really curious to see how much he's capable of earning on the open market if the Giants are willing to break the mold. Or at least Joe Shane is willing to break the mold of really investing in mid-round running backs and going after and extending one guy. Like, that's going to be such an interesting scenario. But first and foremost, he's got to show on the football field that he's capable of being great again. And I think that's going to be the big storyline this year. And even Julian Love said he noticed Saquon is like his former self in a lot of ways. He said he's back in his headspace, being super confident, and that's great, and super confident and competitive. So the mental portion of it for Saquon, I think, was a big thing, and hopefully now we can see the best of him once again, which should be really, really exciting. But the Giants did bring in some other guys in for some workouts. I think that, it's always good. Richie James, I believe, was one of them. There was another one, something Doss, I forget, but Richie James, Brian Dibble had a lot of good things to say about him. Said he has good hands, dependable. He also knows how to run routes pretty well for quarterbacks. So I think that they're bringing in a couple guys to help, bolster the wide receiver position, because they might be concerned about some of those injuries that have happened in the past, and having some good depth there. The wide receiver core for Daniel Jones the last couple of days has not been great. Very, very thin, given the red-shirted Toney, Sterling Shepard, and Golladay. So, Anthony, is there any last points you have from minicamp that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I'll say I think it's interesting. Brian Dable mentioned this in Tuesday's press conference. He talked about a joint practice coming up with the New York Jets, and I think that's kind of cool. It's an opportunity for the Giants and Jets, hopefully, to kind of create more of a sense of community in MetLife Stadium. They're not traveling for this practice, which I think is a great thing. They're going to have it at Quest Diagnostics, which is phenomenal in my opinion. But more importantly, I think that it's crucial for the Giants to not just practice with each other. Now, I understand it's a new offensive scheme and a new defensive scheme, and we talked about it yesterday. This is Daniel Jones going up against the scheme that he struggled the most with in the past, and now he goes up against it in practice every single day. I think that's great for him, and it's great for his development. But it's also great to see different players on a different practice day and go up against a completely different scheme on a completely different practice day. So I think it's kind of cool and interesting to see that the Giants are going to be having a joint practice. I know that they've done a couple of those in the past few years, but they haven't really been the most productive in some cases. And hopefully the Giants and Jets don't get into too many fights, although it would be pretty good entertainment on my Twitter feed if they do. But that's just something to note. Brian Dable did mention him and Robert Saleh have been communicating, and they're planning on doing a joint practice. And the Giants also the NFL released the preseason schedule yesterday as well. The Giants have 3 preseason games. First one is August 11th versus the Patriots. Then they play the Bengals on the 21st, and then they play the Jets on the 28th. So I'd be curious to know if that joint practice happens in the week between the 21st and 28th leading up to the preseason game, or if it happens even earlier in the training camp process. But that'll be something to keep an eye on, as a joint practice between the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah, that should be really fun. I'm excited to see that. That'll be really good for both teams. Both young squads elevating. Hopefully it'll be really competitive. And I saw some videos just now, film into the clips here, into the video, seeing Kenny Galladay's running routes, catching passes. He looks pretty healthy to me. I think that the red jersey is more precautionary than anything. And I think it's just keeping your high paid players conservative and not overdoing it with them, because ultimately you need them on the football field and you don't want them getting injured during practice. So it makes a lot of sense. The Giants are doing some good things. I think health-wise they're being a lot more careful. And I'll tell you what, the clip includes Wan'Dale Robinson running a route too. The guy is electrifyingly quick. Like, out of his break, it's like insane. You watch Kenny Golladay. Now, they are entirely different receivers and totally different players, but you see Kenny Golladay run his route and get out of his break, and then you see Wan'Dale, and it's like, this guy's a jitterbug. He's really quick. So it's fun to see. I'm excited to see where this team can go, how this offense develops and builds over the next couple of months here as the regular season gets closer and closer, my friends. But if you have any thoughts below on the YouTube comments, would always love to hear from you. Much love as always. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.